Right, let's go, boys. So, yeah, quick DBA, super quick,
Yeah.
and then we'll dive into some leagues.
Yeah.
I'll probably give you a couple of options if you want. I'll pick a couple out I think are important, then you can pick one,
Yeah. Okay.
and we'll
Sounds
dive in.
good.
So the RFI looks much better, by the way, from last time.
Yeah.
Like, it's still a little bit snug.
Yeah.
You could probably pick it up. One thing I've seen on the lower stakes as well. What ABI are you playing at the minute, Mark, by the way?
Probably across all sites, I'd say about 12 to 15, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably looking to be hitting at least 50 on the button,
Yeah.
at least 35 on the cutoff. You can probably go a little bit wider. Like when I look at, especially on the low stakes, when I look at everyone's database, and we talk about just getting that RFI up,
Yeah. So
those hands that should be worth zero aren't worth zero. They're worth more than
yeah.
zero.
Because post flop, you'll just have an edge. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just because people are folding too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's enough to
Yeah.
generate a massive win rate. I mean, every time the blinds fold, you're picking up, assuming it's eight-handed, you're picking up a big blind, you're picking up a small blind, and you're picking up a big blind ante. So you're picking up roughly 2.5 big blinds. So
Just from opening. Yeah.
that's 250 big blinds per 100 when the blinds fold. So if they're folding way more than they should be, that's going to have a massive impact on your win rate.
Yeah.
But playing like dog shit post flop doesn't help them, whoever it might be. And we all play a little bit shit post flop from time to time. But
Yeah.
on the low stakes, that's where you're going to see those poor combos do really well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like 50-35. I can run a couple of filters. That should be pretty easy. You call 2-bet looks really good. This was too tight last time, but that looks much better. See, button cut off. Fault is still too high though.
Okay.
In the big blind. So yeah, I
What
think 30-35%, and then small blind. I think he could probably get that done around 70.
Okay. So just a bit too high on both.
Yeah, mainly the big blind though. Like
Yeah.
small blind's fine.
Okay.
Just like in terms of a range for the small blind, I would be at 70-75%, and you're at what 75-ish. So
Yeah.
squeeze is a little bit tight, especially from the blinds.
Okay. Those spots I probably am. I see a couple in game, especially like when I'm going through the VODs. I see a couple where like there's probably an option to squeeze, but I always pick call, and I probably should be picking squeeze. I think it's just like a bit of a just too passive, to be honest.
So do you feel pretty confident with like hand selection? Like you can recognize this hand probably wants to squeeze a bunch.
Probably not as confident as I should, but there'll be hands like I don't know, nines, for example. You have pocket nines, and I'll probably be like torn between two options, and I'll probably always lean towards call. Just in my head, I'm thinking like I'll just be out of position. It'll be deeper, and then I'll get boards. But that's probably post flop. Like lack of knowledge on what I want to be doing on certain boards, so I just lean towards that, which like it doesn't really help the hand because I just win the hand far less often. Yeah, probably just too passive with like the hands that I could take to squeeze, I think.
We can dive in. I do have a couple of filters for squeezing.
Yeah.
Thankfully, when you're in later positions, especially when you're deep, it's going to be pretty linear.
Yeah.
In the blinds, especially. So when you look at like 60 big blinds,
You like
hijack
some
open
suited
foot flat.
connectors and stuff as well. Like
Yeah,
as in
it's
like
super
suited
linear.
broadways.
Exactly. Sometimes it's hard to think about how the range wants to be constructed if you're thinking about value bets and bluffs, like what do I bluff? But when the range is linear, you don't need to complicate it.
Mhm.
You're still going to have squeeze folds and squeeze calls, so in that sense you would have value and bluffs, but you don't need to worry too much about being super intricate with the combos when you're squeezing ace jack suited for value and then the squeeze folds are ace 10 suited. It's just top down, super linear, super easy.
Okay.
Super equity driven. When you're out of position, you're super deep, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, limp raise is a little tight in the small blinds.
That's
Limp
probably
balls
one of
combined,
my
so.
biggest ones as well. that I'm probably one of my biggest leaks is small blind in general. I always feel like, especially blind v blind, I always feel like
Mhm.
I've gotten better, but I feel like there's still a lot of spots where I'm a bit lost, like mid hand, and then I'll always like go back to questioning whether I should have like raised pre or should I limp raise pre or uh, limp call or whatever, you know. Obviously, depends on stack depth for the most part, but yeah,
Yep.
small blinds is probably the one I find the toughest, I'd say.
C-bet flop. So we'll go into some post flop stuff. So yeah, I think it's mostly so for blind versus blind, it's mostly big blind ISO needs to come up, and then a lot of the small blind stats we could dive into
Okay.
as a whole. Because when you fix like just the RFI and limp strategy, it's going to help a lot with the limp fold. It's going to help with the limp raise.
Okay. Yeah.
You kind of want to tackle it. Not necessarily all of them at the same time, but they're going to help each other out.
Yeah.
Like when we look at check folding the flop too much, sometimes the problem is we're c-betting too much. It's not actually because we're check folding. Like we're check folding combos we should check fold. It's just we don't have enough elsewhere in the range.
Yeah, you don't
So
have enough check
c-bet can be
calls.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so c-betting in position, it's just a little. It's basically the same in every position. We want to see it much higher from EP and low from the button. So as we just transition towards early position, we want to be c-betting more.
Okay.
And even if we're c-betting more overall, it still wants to be higher from EP. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping
look,
that
maybe
is going to
cut-off
be a
looks
bit
quite high.
better this time round because that was one of the main takeaways I had from you last time was like I'm missing range C bets. So I was trying to focus a bit more on those. But again, I'm probably auto doing some of those that are maybe not, and then I'm still missing some as well, you know?
Yeah. I'm gonna make a note of your folder check raise, which we can dive into. It doesn't look too bad.
Okay.
But I do want to take a look at some points. Yeah, so more c-betting from EP, a little bit less from late position. C-bet flop out of position looks pretty good, but it's not a huge sample. But early position looks quite tight. Again, the bigger the gap between the open raiser and the flat caller, so if it's under the gun button, for example, you're going to do a decent amount of c-betting there in aggregate. Not like 70, 80, 90%, but you're still going to do quite a lot. You're going to do much more than 13.
That's where
Now,
I'm probably
obviously,
missing them then.
low jack flats, you're going to c-bet loss a lot less.
Yeah, and obviously the later I open, so say it's like hijack button, it's going to obviously going to be completely different to under the gun button, but I'm probably over checking the early position ones.
Yeah.
I'd imagine then.
So that's flop. Folder float might be a little high, but it looks okay. C-bet 10 looks good, just in terms of frequency.
Yeah, there's probably going to be some random hands in there, in these ones.
Yeah, the folder 10 C-bet and the big blind's quite high there, 55%. Not a huge sample elsewhere, but the big blind we're gonna have the most hands, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we could look at that. We could look at the big blind post flop.
Yeah.
Folder 10 probe heads up's quite high too.
Photo probe turn heads up. Yeah.
It's about 45. It's not crazy. I've seen much higher, but it's a little bit elevated.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I don't know if maybe I'm like over c-betting and then I get to the term with too many weak hands. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, that might be a good one to look at as well.
This is after we check the flop. So when it goes check,
Oh,
check.
right. Yeah. Either way,
The
then
flop goes check. Big
probably
blind bet.
probably even worse actually.
blind
Then,
bet.
if I think I'm over c-betting as well.
Yeah, if we're checking back a week
Yeah,
range,
yeah.
it's gonna lead to a lot of folding. But again, it's not ridiculous. C-bet river 80%. It's fucking aggressive. That's aggressive.
that's there's going to be some bad hands in there, I think, where I've just been tripling it off and then definitely too wide at some points. it's something I like spoke to Swag with a bit, and then I've just been mashing it a bit. Like I think Swag is a bit more calculated in which hands he chooses, but I've mainly trying to be. Yeah, I've been trying to be aggressive, but I think I would do, like wouldn't be surprised if I'm way overdoing those.
Fold the river C bet on for the big blind again. It's high, which is surprising because we're folding a lot on the turn.
Yeah.
So we go to the flop actually. So fold the flop C bet. It's not crazy on the flop. It probably maybe it could come down a little bit, but it's not crazy.
But it
the
should.
fold the flop C
The
bet
stat should go down a lot on
20%
turn and
too
river.
high.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we're getting to the river with a super fucking tight range and then we're over folding again, we're just folding too much. Like there's no way around
Yeah,
it. We're
yeah,
just
yeah,
folding way too
yeah.
much. Which I think is probably leading to this 1-1 soft flop just being a little bit lower than it could be. But your other stats look really good. Like in terms of 1-1 soft flop. Like it could be higher from the button. It could be 54, 55 if you're really getting after it, but
Yeah.
they're not too bad. All the river C bet, big blinds. Right, that should do us. I think what we could do is start with something a little bit more fundamental, just something pre-flop, just run a filter.
Yeah.
View a couple of examples of hands we're missing. Either as, RFI against 3 bets, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then we can
that's a good
dive
shot.
into, I think the big blind, to be honest.
Yeah,
That'd be
I
a good
big
play.
blind's always going to be the most beneficial, I think, because you play it the most, and that's probably where I'm losing the most in terms of like there's a lot of things we could fix. So like if we can find any things we can fix immediately, then it'll help a lot.
Tell you what, for pre, we can do small blind limp fold.
Yeah.
We can do big blind ISO, which I have a nice filter for deeper stacks there. Or we can do some squeeze opportunities.
I would say small blind.
Small blind first in.
Yeah. Because I think that's in game. That's where I feel the weakest anyway. And maybe I'm losing money, like more money elsewhere. But I always feel like in small blind it's a big issue. Like,
Yeah, let's take a look. What we can take a look at first is, are we just limp folding too high up? Like, are we just limp folding profitable calls? Because if we look through the filter and all of the hands are normal in terms of we should fold them all, then there's a problem with the limping range being too fucking weak. This should help lever it up a little bit.
mm-hmm.
So limp first in. We'll go any stack.
My guess
I'm
would
gonna
be
hide this
my
filter.
guess would be that is the case as well. I'm limping too weak. Mainly because in my head I think that people don't ISO enough, including myself. So I'm just like probably limp stabbing, but like people are just more aware now the limp stabbing, and you actually lose more because you stab and then you just give up the turn. So that's probably one of the issues, I'd imagine.
Say that again, Mark. Sorry.
So like, I think I'm limping too wide, like you said, because I think they're not ISOing enough.
Right.
Which is, and then I'm just like over c-betting the flop, just try and take it down. But it's probably worse because if they're not ISOing enough, then they're gonna have some hands they should ISO that are shitter hands as well, but they'll have stronger hands as well. And then I'm getting floated on a flop, and then I'm giving up the turn, so I'm actually losing more money probably in those spots.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're limping some hands which in theory would be minus EV? Do you think that's one of the reasons it's quite high? The limp fold?
Maybe. I am like folding bottom of range, but like I probably am still limp. It depends on opponent, to be honest. If I think, I just limp stab, but it's quite a lazy. It's quite a lazy thing to do in it, really. Just limp stab.
Do you have a rough idea of where you're at the minute, though, just in terms of we limp the small blind?
Yeah.
Which kind of hands are towards the bottom of the range? Like which hands are kind of close? Like is it offsuit nines? Is it offsuit fives? Is it where were you?
Right. So what was the question, mate? Again, sorry.
So I'll tell you what, we'll pull a hand up as an example, just to make it a
Yeah.
little bit easier. So all we're looking at is we've limp folded the small blind with a hand that might be in.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's not guaranteed that every hand we're going to see
Is in, but some of them
is a
will be.
disaster.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to be players.
Yeah. Got you.
You think about this one?
Um. Hmm. I feel like ace eight or better just limp call, but like this one, maybe do I just jam myself? I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm unsure on this one. Is my honest answer.
Yeah. So what are you kind of torn between? Just limp or jam? You're not really sure.
Yeah, like it feels a little bit shit to limp fold an ace though.
Yeah.
I just don't know how many I just don't know how well we're gonna perform against jam with a6 off. Like
Kind of dicey, right?
with a8 off, I think if they jam worse ace we still win a lot. With this, I think we sharp a lot or we lose. But we fold out. We fold against some hands ahead against. Definitely, especially like if he jams low pairs, maybe some.
It's good. So this is why we're here. So pulling some of these hands out is going to help the limp fold being too high.
Yeah.
Because I would just pure jam this. I wouldn't mix.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is just going to be a jam. So one thing that's pretty consistent, and it's pretty consistent across different risk premiums too. It's consistent across some PKO models, is that when you get to 20 big blinds and shallower, blind versus blind, either first in from the small blinds or against a limp, offsuit ace-x for the most part, is just going to jam.
That's another thing I was gonna say though, is like how many is too many to be jamming, because if this was like 17 I would think I'd comfortably jam this, but because he's got 23, I'm unsure.
Yeah, so it is going to get a little bit dicey as we approach 25. But the fact that he's
Okay.
got 23 and not 16 is pretty relevant. Like we might pull a sim up and it's a little bit too dicey.
Yeah.
But the first thing you should be thinking about when you get dealt an offsuit ace, blind versus blinds, below 25 big blinds, is generally I'm looking to get the stack in pre. Either first in or, like I said, jamming against a limp.
And
As
what
you approach 25, it's going to get a little bit dicey, but yeah, go for it.
and what would be your raise calls? Or would you have any
Raise
limp
calls.
calls at ace-x? Obviously, probably not then if you're trying to get a stack in, no?
In terms of offsuit ace-x, it might be ace king, ace queen.
And you'd go for
For the
limp
bulk of the
raise.
offsuit ace-x, yes, or limp raise or limp call. But even then, ace queen offs, it's not a disaster to just jam ace queen off for 20.
And then
But I would be much more inclined to either raise or limp call.
your ace-x in the limping range. The majority of your ace-x in the limping range then would be the suited ace, like ace-3 suited, ace-2 suited, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so this is probably one of the cleaner ones then, just rifle in.
I would just jam. Yeah, I would just jam.
Yeah.
To be honest, most of the strong ace-x is going to raise. So it's not like, put it this way, when you face a limp jam, you're going to have some calls, but most of the range isn't going to call. Mostly what you're going to do is fold. You don't need to have a high frequency defend against a jam when you limp, because the price they get on the jam is pretty poor, so you don't need to defend that much of your range. Just
Yeah,
in terms
that
of
makes
preventing
sense.
him from jamming 3-2s off. You don't really need to defend that much.
Yeah.
But again, the first thing we should be thinking about when we're shallow and we've got an offsuit ace first in, small blinds, just jam. This is going to help clean up some of the limp folds for sure.
Okay.
Because he's 23, it might limp. I'm not saying it's not going to limp, but what I'm thinking about is getting the stack in. If it's 17, I'm definitely shoving. And that's
Yeah. I do
like,
think if I had like 17, I'm just in, but that's probably where I'm missing it when they're bitty, but.
This one's fine. Might take the jams out actually if we see a bunch. It's probably fine. Okay, so there's one without a jam with a pretty standard raise. What are we thinking in terms of how wide we're defending? Does this feel close? Does it feel in? Does it
Yeah,
feel
no, this feels close, I think.
So where would you be at the minute?
I'm well, I'm not surprised that I folded this, but like, if I wouldn't be surprised if I saw call or fold, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I
So
don't think I would be folding
this is
10-9
closest,
off.
10-9 then? Right, so
Yeah, I don't think I would
we're
be
at the
folding
9s.
10-9 off.
What about ace-x?
Ace-X is tricky. I don't think I would fold any ace, to be honest.
So any ace, yeah.
Yeah. And I wouldn't fold, like, hardly any suited hands. Like, maybe I don't know, like 7 deuce suited, maybe, to this. Or like
Just
8
7
free
deuce
suited.
or something like this, maybe.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah. Maybe, like, I don't think I'd be folding, like, some of those king 8, queen 8, jack 8. Yeah, that's probably.
Like that.
I'd like to think I won't be folding them anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this looks pretty good, to be honest, just in terms of the structure. I think you're pretty spot on. There's a couple of changes we can make, but it's looking pretty good. So I think there's two things happening. One of two is, for some reason in practice, maybe you haven't developed it to that level of unconscious competence enough to the point where when you're playing a hand quickly, you're finding the right defense.
Yeah. Yeah, it could definitely be possible.
But yeah, this range looks pretty good. We are going to fold some suited combos. This is probably going to be in though. So
Yeah.
I'll play this.
Yeah, Sam said as well, versus ISO, we generally use our button opening range to defend, which was useful for me to know. I don't know if you agree or...
It's going to be pretty close. Yeah, just in terms of the structure. It's going to be pretty close. It's going to be... I mean, it depends on the size and the stack depth. It's going to be a little bit wider. Like, I would defend suited fours, which I wouldn't open on the button. So it's not going to be one-to-one, but in terms of the heuristic, it's a pretty solid one. Offsuit eights, I'm going to defend. So that's going to be the floor of the range for the most part. And depending on stack depth, we might see some sevens come in. But suited fours, in terms of the suited combos, are going to be the floor, and offsuit eights.
Okay.
So if you remember now else, when it comes to limp folds, suited fours, offsuit eights, it'll be good. And we pull a sim up actually, just to take a look. Got 40 bigs, small blind limp, big blind ISO. At the minute, we're at around 60% limp fold.
Yeah, it's too high.
Even if we go up to like 60, you can see the fold frequency. It's never really getting that much higher than like 40-45%.
Yeah. What's at that stack depth then? What kind of range does small blind open?
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of limping. Top of the range is going to raise a lot. I mean, you can kind of see with the defending range which hands are missing.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's 25. But yeah, at 40, there's going to be mostly the strategy is going to limp. A lot of the strong suited combos are going to raise. A lot of the strong pairs are going to raise. You're going to have some weak suited combos raising a bunch, like 10-4 suited, 10-3 suited, 9-5 suited, 9-4 suited, some suited connected hands at the bottom, 6-3, 5-3. A lot of the offsuit blocks going to mix, and then when it comes to limping, it's going to be basically these middle and suited combos are doing a lot of limping, and then the bottom of the range. So if you think about how you want to raise, we can kind of see it, but we'll pull a range up so we can see the actual strategy.
Yeah.
It looks super fucking messy, and I was chatting about this. I think it was yesterday. I made a post on this in the server, which I'd recommend you go and check out.
I think I
Basically,
did skim through it where you said like at 80 you're just limping like close to range or range.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did have a look at that.
It's super messy, but you can just kind of break it down into sections. So if we look at the top of the range, so let's say like A7 suited, suited 9, strong pocket pairs, mostly you want to be raising.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry too much about the mixing. Like, If you look at Queen 10 there, it's raising 35%. If we go to 35, now it's dropped.
Yeah.
It's actually the exact same, just to fuck me off. But you can see, like, let's use a different hand as an example. Small changes in the input are going to lead to big changes in the strategy. Like, look at King 10 at 40. It's like almost pure raise. Then at 50, it's apparently it sucks and we should limp.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry too much about the frequency. Just focus on the structure. And the structure is the top of the range raises a lot. So if you get dealt a strong hand in the small blinds, you should probably limp sometimes. But mostly what you want to do is raise.
Okay.
Same with the weak suited combos. We've just got this C shape we see a lot for some of the offsets. The offsuit block is doing a lot of mixing, but it's not the bottom. Okay. And then the limps come from this middling block. So if you get a middling suited combo, limp a lot.
The offsuit's like high in the middle, isn't it? High middle cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I'd just like to break it down into the value. This middling suited block, the weak suited block, and then the top and bottom of the offsuit range. But the main thing is if you get dealt a face card or an offsuit 5, you're in. So that's the bottom. And that's the most important thing for me is you don't really want to be raising King 3 suited a bunch. You don't really want to be limping Ace 9 suited a bunch, or Queens. You don't want to be raising Jack 3 offsuit a bunch.
Yeah.
I don't really give a fuck if 9-5 suited is, you raise it 90% or 50. What's more important is the structure of the raising range and the limping range looks pretty clean and the frequencies are pretty solid. Just in terms of the theory.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not talking about any exploits or MDA or any of that bullshit. Just in terms of understanding how the game works. So yeah, that's the raising range. A lot of mixing across the offsuit block.
Yeah.
And then against ISO, offsuit 8s, suited 4s, any suited face card. But you can see the 7s are kind of close. King 5 off.
Yeah.
But 9-8's not mixing. 9-8's just a call.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of this. That one looks fine to me.
This is a 300 tournament, that one. So it's not like FT or whatever.
Yeah. What do you think about this one?
Well, this is going to be similar to the 8-9. Well, we're deeper though, so I'd imagine it's even more of a call, really.
Yeah, I'll pure call.
Yeah.
I'll pure call. What do you think about this one?
Probably in, I'd imagine. But I think this would be yeah, I think this would be close as well.
Yeah. I think because it's the 3x, it might sneak in. But to be honest, the main thing for me is that this feels close.
Yeah.
Like 10-8 shouldn't feel like a mix. It should just be like
yeah.
This is a call.
Yeah.
10-7 should feel close. As long as these hands, which are worth around 0, feel close, overall your range is going to look pretty fucking strong.
Yeah.
Like your strategy is going to look strong, I mean. But yeah, 25 against 3x looks pretty close to me. I think it could sneak in. I think Queen 7 is going to be pretty solid.
I should say.
But yeah, Queen 5's close. But based on what we've seen, it's not ridiculous that it feels close. Like I wouldn't be too concerned. I think it's just because we're shallower. The raise size is a little bit smaller, so we're defending a little bit more. So now the 7s are coming in a little wider with the high cards.
Yeah, and it goes for like the limp raise bluff a little bit, no all in.
It's a weird one. We'll skip that one.
Yeah, this one seems like it's in, but I don't know if we're like deep or whatever. Yeah.
We're super deep, which is going to affect the strategy because if we limp a tighter range, we can defend a little bit tighter. So what I'm going to do is reduce the blind level, and take the jams out actually. Pre-flop. But yeah, we can jump into some big blind stuff in a second. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
Just
No,
what
this
it
is
looks
good.
like
Small
off the
blind.
day.
Small blind's good, I think, because
Good.
I definitely missed too many. Yeah, that's another similar one to the one you said before, really, with the jam. I know it's like a little bit deeper. Like maybe it's just out with the jams. But yeah, I probably just never folding an ace, really, are you?
Nope. I mean, does it want to jam? It's kind of hard to say. It's a little bit. These are a little bit tricky, but don't fold. That's the main thing. Don't fold. Yeah, just play the fucking hand. Don't fold ace-6 offsuit.
Don't
Nice.
fold.
This is against a 4. Probably okay. Don't fucking fold ace-6. That one's fine. As long as you understand roughly where the perimeter is. Like, what do you think about this one?
That's a lot of chips off my stack, but this is like decent. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, I would assume in game the main reason I folded is because it's like 3 out my stack, but like I've only got 12 bigs, so like I can still call, I guess.
Anyway, we look at the ace 5 one. So we'll go 25. So we're a little bit deeper. So this is us first in at 25. You can see it's mixing. But we're jamming. As soon as we drop this down to
it's just
20,
rifling in. Yeah.
It's not really limping these kind of ace-X combos. It's only really the top which one are either against an ISO or jam.
Yeah.
Against an ISO or against a jam just stack off.
Yeah.
So we're limping. I mean, it's not really limping anything. It's raising those. But sorry, that was the big blind. There we go. Yeah, if we're not limping because we want to stack off, we should be jamming when it comes to the offsuit ace-X. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, even at 14, ace king's just in there. But those are the combos which stick around. Like when you get up to 20, what's jamming? It's offsuit ace-X. Low pairs.
Yeah, I think like they're quite like intuitive finds, really. Like there's got to be a reason I'm not doing it, obviously, but I think most people will see those and agree.
Yeah. So there's your jack 8 offsuit against the 4x. It's just in.
Even off like 12 bigs.
Yep. But in your mind, you're thinking, this is a lot of fucking chips.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit intimidated right now. I'm thinking.
I mainly just don't know where the line is. That's the problem.
It's a little bit tricky.
And also maybe in my head,
a lot, aren't we?
Yeah, and in my head, maybe like I'm thinking they under ISO, which isn't really an excuse, to be fair, because if I just play this way, then it'll just work out at the end. Do you know what I mean? But if I'm thinking that, I'm always going to be giving people like either too much credit or not enough credit. I just need to focus on myself.
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned personally. Like I say,
yeah.
I'm different in those hands. I'm in there. These guys are the ones that are a little bit too passive pre. Let's say you play someone who you can't really know if he's unknown, but let's say he's ISOing 30% instead of 40, and the EV of that jack 8 offs or 10-8 off or queen 8 offs 0 or slightly minus EV. These same guys are going to make a lot of post-flop mistakes.
Yeah.
So even though the pre-flop defend might be minus EV, if we were to look at, a million hands on the low stakes for defending those hands, I think they'll be doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too concerned. But I would need to see something first before I make an adjustment.
Yeah. That's probably the main thing I'm not doing as well, to be fair. Lad in chat says, what's the thing about raising from small blind 2.5 BB or 4 BB shallow stack? Because you had 2 sizes then on the GTO wizard.
Or the ISO for the big blind.
Does it just give 2 sizes, or is there a reason that they would? Is it like different ranges?
There are some hands which really like they're very efficient to the 4x. Like it's pretty clear. Like these offsuit aces at the top, these offsuit kings are super efficient to that size. For me personally, I only use one size. I'd make it somewhere in the middle, and I would just group them because I don't really want to split the range if
Yeah.
it's not worth much EV.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I would
yeah.
be surprised if it's worth a lot of EV. That's the first thing. But also, he's going to call sometimes against both sizes. Do you really want to tackle the post-flop game tree against both sizes? For me, practically, I think the answer's I would lean towards no
Yeah.
at the minute. If someone ran two sims and they said this having this 4x adds 10%, 20% of the EV of the strategy on top, I'd be like, all right, let's implement it and manage it and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Makes
But
sense.
for now, um,
So you
like it
you
makes
just
sense.
go like 3 big blinds or 3.5, would you?
I would go 3, 2.7, 2.8. I don't
Yeah.
think it's that important.
Okay.
I think what's more important is you have a certain size that you want to use, which makes sense, and then the strategy fits the size and the
Yeah.
EV.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you could run this sim with a 6x, you could run it with a 2.2x. It's going to spit out a GDO answer. They're all going to be valid. Um, just use a sizing that's somewhat close to optimal, if you know what that looks like,
Yeah.
and then make sure your strategy fits that.
Yeah.
You'll be golden. Try and keep it simple, especially when you're implementing new strategies. You don't want it to be too complex. Like save that for later. But even now, I feel like I could manage this strategy pretty well. And I still choose not to. I think there's just too
Yeah.
much EV elsewhere. Like we can look at your big blind gameplay now. We're going to see plenty of spots where we can, both of us, where we can generate much more EV than fucking about with,
Yeah. Yeah.
a 4 big blind ISO from the big blind at 12.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's worth much. Tell you what we'll do. So we'll just go heads up for now. So call 2-bet. You'd probably look at some multi-way for the same leagues at some point.
Yeah. Multi-way's definitely. I know it's harder with multi-way because I know you have a software teach for multi-way, but obviously GTO is you don't really do multi-way post flop. That's a lot more complex, obviously.
Yeah, 100%. And it is going to be a part of your fold to 10. So you bet is going to be some multi-way hands. Right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We can probably still take a lot of like takeaways from it, though. Where I'm probably leaking money.
So I'm gonna isolate either a fold on the turn to a C bet or a fold on the river to a C bet or a river check. So basically, I'm
We get to the turn
a
or
little bit
river
of a
and
broad filter.
we don't put money in.
Yeah, we don't put money in.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Let's see what this filter gives us. How the fuck do we lose this one, eh? Disaster. I think we can skip that one. Fucking hell.
I was thinking then, I hope I haven't folded over here. When you said how do we lose?
Yeah, that's probably fine. It's probably fine. How do you think about this?
I think it's probably underbluffed in game, if I'm honest, from their line. But I don't know if that's generally true. That's how I feel about it. But we can still make the best hand. Like, well, one, we still have the best hand on a turn, like a reasonable amount. Just realizing the equity is probably hard, I'd imagine. Like, we're going to face a river bet a lot. If I think that the turn is underbluffed, though. I don't know. I think these, like, when it comes like ace board, I always feel like it's underbluffed. Because the calls are so on a board like this anyway. I know there's like turn flush draw and a gut shot, but I feel like I don't know if static is the right word for the big blind calls, but that's how I view it. Where the board doesn't change much basically, so their calls remain a similar range. Does that make sense?
You mean the defendant range?
Yeah. Which is why I think it's underbluffed.
Do you mean in terms of different sizes, the defender range is going to be pretty static? Or
Yeah, yeah,
am I misunderstanding? Yeah, I think even if you look at it through an exploitative lens, we're still missing a lot of structure to the thought process, which is going to help us come up with an answer.
Okay.
Because if we don't really know what the threshold is, or what's worth 0,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to overfold or underfold a
Okay.
threshold that we don't know exists. So understanding how this spot works is really fucking important, in my opinion, regardless of how you want to approach the game.
Okay.
So my approach to this turn spot is going to be pretty consistent and pretty simple. I'm facing a certain bet size. It's going to lead to, let's say, a fold frequency range. We're not going to be able to know the exact fold frequency, but we're going to have a rough idea based on the bet size what it looks like.
Yeah.
And all I'm trying to do is think about what my flop range looks like. So I've arrived to the turn with a certain range, and this is why your pre-flop range is so important, because that's the start of the game tree.
Yeah.
We're starting pre-flop. We've called a raise. We haven't 3-bet, so we've stripped out a bunch of hands. We've check called the flop, so we've stripped out a bunch of hands again. So we're getting to the turn with a rough idea of what the range looks like, and all I'm going to do is figure out, based on the rough fold frequency,
Yeah, where that hand lies.
Chunk of hands. Where's that hand? Is it? I mean, if we just take MDF, it's not going to be super clean to look at MDF on flops and turns and stuff. It's not going to be reliable. But let's say we face a 40% bet, and we look at the fold frequency. It's going to be pretty low against B40, 28%.
Yeah.
Let's say that was our fold frequency in the spot, right?
Yeah.
All I'm trying to do is figure out what's the worst 28% of my range that gets here, and I'm going to get rid of it. So the best 72% of hands, which is most of the fucking hands, are going to stick around. And sometimes when you start with that process, whether you're thinking about overfolding or underfolding, you can come to the conclusion pretty quickly with some hands. This is probably the bottom 10%. This is probably the bottom 20%. You don't need to think about it. You just know this is a hand that by the time I get to this street, it's too weak. And some hands are going to be close, and you're not quite sure. I would fold this one. I don't think it's going to be a disaster to VPIP, but the fold frequency on an A-side board is going to be pretty high. So that's where I'm starting.
Yeah.
We're not going to be defending that much in terms of offsuit combos. It's going to be hands like this. So when it is a button range, to be fair. So there might be some king tens, but it's mainly going to be suited. So all the broadways with diamonds come in first. All the pairs are going to come in before this. All the open enders are probably going to come in before this. We're going to have a couple of combo draws. Where does this stand? Probably pretty far down.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty far down in the range because, like I say, I think we are going to be folding the flop a lot.
Yeah.
What would be a problem if you start folding king six suited?
Yeah, I would fold this over a pair, like always.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But again, I don't mind too much where the threshold is. But if we're folding pairs often in this spot, we're going to have a problem. We're defending so much.
Would you put much weight to the king of diamonds?
For the offsuit combos, not really.
Okay.
Not really, because I think they're all going to be worth in and around the same. He should probably barrel diamonds more than other suits, block and flush draws. So if he's going to bluff diamonds a lot, having a diamond probably sucks.
Yeah.
In terms of bluff catching king high. It feels pretty close though. But again, I'm not that concerned where king jack fits in the range. Like, we can take a look. It's mainly that.
Yeah, you just want to understand the spot.
I just want the structure to be there, and I want it to be consistent so that I can come up with an answer for a spot I've never seen before, whatever it might be. So where do you think this sits based on what we just said there? The rough defense.
Yeah, well, obviously low down because obviously I folded, but I agree with you. Like, there's just so many more hands we call before this. But I'm probably still missing some of the calls. Is probably the issue. Like, there's probably hands that will be calls on the turn that I would have folded in game.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to look at them, I think.
So what would you do with 7-5 on the turn?
7-5 on the turn. I think it'd be better than calling this. The problem with 7-5 is you get to the river with 7 high a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously sometimes you get the price back. Yeah. I probably would unfold, but I don't love it either.
Yeah, it's probably a pure call, especially against this size. So this
And
is where
so if you just give up river sometimes then, like not give up river, but like you just check 7 high on a river,
unless the
and you
river
just get your
brings some
price.
kind of asymmetry.
Yeah,
Unless
yeah,
I have a reason to start betting value hands on the river, I'm not going to start bluffing random hands.
yeah.
But here's the thing: you don't need. So open enders are pretty resilient. The flush draws are going to be pretty resilient. Put it this way: you give me the choice between King Jack off and 7-5. I don't think it's close. I take 7-5 all day long.
Yeah.
It's the same with
What about a
6-8 as
hand
well.
like 8-7?
8-7. So those gut shots are going to be
Because they have
probably
2 overs to 6 as well.
Yeah, 8-7 stuff. Which is why I think this hand's good, because it's not obvious to me while we're looking at it.
Yeah.
Like King Queen offsuits that much better than 8-7. So which hands come out? Because the gut shots are going to be how we fold, right? If we think about calling the flop with 5 deuce. Like we might check raise, but this is how we're going to fold. It's going to be straight draws.
Yeah.
We don't really have much else. It's going to be Queen 10 suited. It's going to be King 10 suited.
So you're taking
might
like
be
a bottom
King 7
pair
suited.
over 7-5, obviously, yeah.
Not necessarily. So those open enders are going to be very fucking hard to fold in terms of 10 barrels. And just based on the way you're describing it, I think that's where we're going to be folding a little bit too much.
Yeah.
It's hands like that. Not necessarily open enders specifically, but I'm just going to give them one size, just be 33.
Yeah, that's sound.
Because we do have 8 outs to the nuts, but we also have pair outs against a lot of hands, which are betting.
Yeah, that's the upside, I suppose, of when he is bluffing and we get to river 7 high, we still have pair outs.
Yeah. So this is our flop range, which already, for me, it starts to get a little bit easier to defend folding this. So we're taking this V-pipping range, and we've got to find, let's say, for argument's sake, 30% fold, 35% fold. It's not a fucking leap to see King 10's the bottom and King Jack's going to fold the turn when we're folding that chunk. It's not a huge leap. Obviously, all these suited combos are going to come out, but they're not that much. It's
A
only
lot of
3
this
combos.
drives from how much we fold flop on a side rainbow board, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's important, is taking...
Like, this, that's probably... It's easier for me to get to the point here, with, especially with your help, and a lot of the time, but like, in-game, maybe I'm not realising how much the range has changed from the flop to the turn as well.
Yeah, what sizing did he bet on the turn, actually?
About 40, is it? B40, something like that.
Go 40. We'll go 40. So the fold frequency is pretty low. I thought it would be a little bit higher, to be honest. But keep in mind his bluffs still do have equity.
Yeah.
But just in terms of, which hands do we fold? We've obviously got a lot of backdoors. I think the reason King Jack's in so much is because, like these gut shots we mentioned, they're all coming out first.
Yeah.
8-7's out. We are floating a lot of backdoor flush draws.
The thing with King Jack, in my mind, is that it has showdown versus the bluffs, whereas like 7-5 doesn't.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I'm probably maybe giving it too much weight, because obviously like 8-7's out, 7-5's in. Yeah, I just worry I get to the river too much with 7 high, he gives up, and then I lose to like, I don't know, Queen 10 off or something stupid,
Yeah, so let's take a look at King Jack. So obviously King Jack, before we even look, it's mixing, so it's worth around 0. Some combos are worth more than others. If you're not too sure in game, and it feels pretty close.
King of Diamonds. Sure, I think did I have the Jack hearts?
Yeah, you can see the diamonds are pretty shit.
Yeah, it doesn't like the King of Diamonds. Well, it doesn't like any diamond really, but yeah, it doesn't like King of Diamonds.
Don't worry too much about the diamonds. The point is, the fold frequency is pretty low. In this specific spot, we're just pulling out the worst 20% of hands, and we get there with some of these weaker gut shots, first of all. And then a lot of these backdoors. And then by the time you get to King Jack, it starts getting close.
Yeah, it's folding like the bottom pair a bit as well at the bottom with no backdoor straight draw now. It's gone.
Yeah, so let's go. Where's 7-5? 7-5 is worth a big blind, so it's not close.
Yeah. Okay.
7-5 is worth more than King 4 suited.
Yep.
Like significantly more.
Yeah.
Like 50% more on top of the EV with the open enders. So yeah, especially against these small barrels, don't be folding open enders.
Yeah, someone says also the open-ended straight draws are not full frequency because you raise some on the flop.
What
In the
was that, sorry,
sim.
bud?
In the sim.
Say that again for me, please. What do you
He
cut out?
says on the turn,
Mm-hmm.
the open-ended straight draw is not full frequency as well because you'll raise some on the flop, which looks like it's raising with the backdoors.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. But does the overall kind of approach make sense?
Yeah.
It's about what does my range look like?
Yeah,
How much am I
I'm
folding?
probably just giving, like I said, giving too much weight to getting to the river with 7 high and then losing the hand and then being like, oh, because I lost the hand, I should have done something different. Whereas like, no, you just lost the hand.
Yeah, open end is worth a lot of money. It's probably okay. Yeah, I think the flop's pretty close against this position, but with double backdoors ASI. Again, I'm not super concerned. I think he can lead the turn. Someone mentioned that. Tunisian King mentioned that.
I think he's on about the.
Oh, he mentioned the flop.
Yeah.
I think he can lead the turn in this spot, but it's whatever. I'm just too concerned. What do you think about this one? When we get there.
What on the river you mean, or?
Yeah.
It's probably quite a nice hand to bluff. It's hard to like. It's hard to get to the river with worse, really. Especially when the turns are 9. And I don't block hearts. So, yeah, probably a good hand to bluff.
Yeah, my main concern on the river is the board's filled out a little bit. So it hasn't filled out in the sense that if the river was the 5 of hearts, now we're really fucked because now we really don't have worse hands. Because when the board fills out, essentially all we're trying to do in this spot is it's kind of a similar thought process. We have value bets. We need to find some offsets.
Yep.
And generally speaking, unless you have a really good reason not to, you're going to pick the combos at the bottom of the range which check for the least EV. Now, sometimes you have a good reason to bluff a little bit higher up. Maybe you have a good blocker to the nuts. Maybe you make the folds available, whatever it might be. But generally speaking, the way you want to think about bluffing is you want to bluff the hands which check for the least EV, right? Now, some people get it all fucked up in this spot and they think, I have showdown value, so I'm going to check. I couldn't care less about how much showdown value we have. What we need to think about is how we're going to bluff.
Yeah.
Because if we have value bets, we're going to have offsets. It doesn't matter if those offsets check for an EV of 5 big blinds. If that's the bottom hand in your range, if that's the worst hand in your range, it's going to bluff. All it means is that imposition is going to overfold MDF because we're bluffing quite high up.
Yeah.
So, for example, if in a certain spot we're bluffing with a pair of, like, let's say in this spot we had to bluff with a pair of jacks. We don't, but let's say we did. Obviously, he's going to just fold his 9x because those lose to bluffs. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you're going to hear that a lot. You're going to hear people say, I checked because I had showdown. Again, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's not
I'm
balanced.
bluffing the bottom up. It doesn't make any sense. It makes a lot of sense in the way that we've all thought that way. I can completely understand why someone would think that. I've thought that before. It's just not how the game works. Because when you think through the lens of, I checked because I had showdown value, that's where, when the board fills out, people don't bluff enough because they think, I'm just going to bluff something else. But when you think about on the 5 of hearts, what's the bottom of the range after we've checked all the flop? And the 9's filled out and the hearts have filled out. It's 3x.
Yeah, or like backdoor clubs.
Or ace 10. Maybe
Because he
like
went
ace
small.
8 of clubs, which is probably going to just fold the flop, to be honest, on double Broadway. But even then, you're going to be value betting a lot, right? Because the board's filled out. So you've got a lot of flushes, you've got a lot of straights, you've got a lot of two pairs, a lot
Yeah, you
of
have
top
to
pairs.
turn
You're
some
going to value
pairs
bet a
into
lot.
bluffs.
You're going to have to bluff a lot there. So
Sam says, I get confused here. Straight draws filled, so we bluff with flush draws and pairs. But do the suits not stop us because we block how he's going to check fold, or is that irrelevant?
I would be more concerned with just bluffing the bottom of the range before I'm worrying too much about the blockers. Again, unless
Yes,
you know for a fact it's not a bluff.
Yeah, you're more focused on your range than how their range reacts. Would you say?
They're both important. It's just if you have like 10-4 hearts here and you check because you think he's going to fold ace 10 and some hearts, I think that's a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
Because it's the worst combo in your range. The chances that it checks to bluff elsewhere, and keep in mind, that's why it would check. It would check to bluff elsewhere. It wouldn't check to not bluff with the range, because again, we're going to bet our king 10. Like, we might check raise king 10, but you get the point. We've got a lot of queen X. We've got a lot of two pairs. We're going to block some jack X. We've got a lot of value bets in the range. We're going to bluff. Whatever sizings we're using are going to dictate the value to bluff ratio, right?
I think that's quite a big leak in low stakes, especially as well. Is that like people think if they bluff, they have to go big size, yeah. So they just don't bluff those type of hands. Whereas, like, you will have hands that want to block the river, for example.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, with a block, most of the betting range is going to be value. That's just the way the value to bluff ratio works. And the price your opponent gets is going to dictate we don't bluff much when we bet small. That's just how it should be.
Yeah, but I just think in general, some people at least will have 0 bluffs for that size.
So
I think that's a mistake.
I'm concerned with bluffing from the bottom up.
Yeah.
What I would say is one of the most underbluff spots you're going to see from good regs as well, by the way, not just recreational players, like really good regs, is when the board fills out in a certain way and the bottom of their range is a pair or the bottom of their range is ace high. You see a lot of checks because they think I've got showdown value.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, you got no bluffs.
I'm not saying this wasn't all spiel to say this is a bluff. I'm just trying to kind of go through
No,
the
yeah,
thought
no,
process,
it's good. It's a good point to make.
So the fact that you're considering bluffing it, I think is really good, to be honest. Before we take a look, if we are bluffing 3x, for example, which might not be the case, we might want to bluff ace 10 and then just bluff worst 3x, which makes the folds available. So maybe if we bluff 3x, we have enough flush draws, we have enough ace 10 that we bluff those and then we check 10-3, king 3.
Yeah.
We bluff like 4-3 suited, 5-3 suited. But the main thing is I'm gonna fuck around with the turn and the river just to show you how it changes. Basically.
Do you think it's better to have a? No, I was gonna say, do you think it's better or worse to have a 10? But there's merit for both, I suppose.
Yeah, he's not gonna check king 10, so blocking the nuts is irrelevant.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But also, like, he might have hands in his range with a 10 that makes him call more. Do you know what I mean?
He blocks the straight.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where it's kind of hard to predict.
Yeah. So, like, bluffing 5-3 might be just nicer because then he has the ace 10 as well to fold or whatever. But
yeah. Before we see the sim, honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's
We
merit
might
for
have enough
both, I
flush
think.
draws. We might have enough ace ten, whatever it is. But another thing, the reason I stopped on the flop earlier is because it might just fold the flop. I know it seems super fucking tight, but when it's under the gun on a board like
Yeah,
this,
he's quite shallow as well.
and when we improve, we're not necessarily loving life. It might be. I'm not saying it's definitely going to fall, but it might be fucking dicey on the
Yeah.
flop. But we can take a look.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fuck around with some turns and rivers just to kind of
While you're doing that, I'm just going to nip to the toilet quickly, right?
go for a minute. What are we thinking, boys? Is this close on the flop or am I in it? What's going on? Looks pretty fucking close to me. Size is super small, which has got me a little bit concerned. It's always hard to fold. It's always hard to fold pairs against small sizes, but this position, these kind of boards, I mean, this is where it happens, right? But we'll see. I
High
don't think a
back.
2-bet's fucking stupid. Yo,
Yeah, I wouldn't have
right.
really thought too much about folding this hand, so it's probably good you bring it up. Mainly because of the size. I heard you said the size, but yeah.
It's pretty close though. Pretty close. See what happens if he goes B40. Do we start? It's still probably going to mix our way. So the call looks good. I was
Folds
a
a bigger
little bit
size, yeah.
concerned on the flop. So against, it doesn't take much. B40 starts to 2-bet a little bit. 2-bet's a little bit of king 3. But the call looks good. You've got to consider that as well in this spot. Because if he goes B40 and we start folding a bunch of 3x, now if the 9 fills and a heart fills, we don't even have 3x to bluff with. And we've still got to have bluffs, right?
Yeah, sorry, mate, yeah.
So now we're going to need to turn even stronger hands into a bluff, which check for even more EV. Right, so 9.
What about a bet lead on turn? I don't think we'll have any leads when he bets flop.
Yeah, we're just going to check. We're just going to check on the turn. And the reason we're going to check on the turn is kind of the same reason we want to check on the flop.
Yeah.
So the same reasons we check the flop are the same reasons we check the turn. It's because the pre-flop disadvantage, this is why we're checking the flop. The pre-flop asymmetry belongs to the under the gun player. So our range is super wide. His is very tight and uncapped. So when we get to a flop like this, which doesn't really do anything to help with that asymmetry, we're still kind of fucked. The range is still in big trouble. You know, we're going to need a specific flop for that asymmetry to converge and help us out a little bit.
Is range bet for him, yeah?
It's a range bet, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He's using some bigger sizes too. So we check the flop because we have a significant range disadvantage, because the turn doesn't really help us solve that asymmetry. Because if you think about what's going to happen on the flop, we're going to check raise pocket threes a lot. We're going to check raise strong queen X a lot. We have a little bit of king 10, but so does he. So there's nothing's happened yet in the hand to bridge that gap between us having the weaker range and him having the stronger one. It's still the case, so we just check.
Yeah.
We just want to check everything.
What was the outcome on the river?
I think it just goes check, check, right?
No, in the sim, sorry.
Oh, we haven't looked yet.
All right, okay.
This is us. This is us. So there's our flush draws. Don't check. Yeah, don't fucking check.
Yeah.
We don't need to bluff 3x on this run out.
Because we just bluff so many flush draws, yeah.
Yeah, it just gets to. It looks like it gets to ace 10 and it has enough. And that's all we're trying to do is we're just trying to offset the value bets with enough bluffs, so that the range is balanced.
Do you think it's quite interesting? It's betting ace 10 and not 10-3 because showdown wise they're quite similar, no? It's just ace king.
So the 3x is going
And
to
deuces,
probably
I
generate
guess.
more. So 10-3 is like 1.33, ace 10 is 0.6. So there's a big difference with the check EV. But you're right that the next hand might be 10-3 or like 3 deuce, whatever
Yeah.
the next hand maybe might be a pair. But we've just got enough with ace 10.
Yeah, no, yeah,
That's
yeah,
all we're
yeah.
doing.
It's
Once
just
we've
I
got enough,
just
we
think
stop
it's
bluffing.
interesting that that's like because essentially in terms of that having showdown, he only has when we have ace 10. I mean, we lose to ace king that he could check and maybe deuces if he has them. But then they're with the same, so like there's got to be a reason ace 10's betting over 10-3, which is probably just what you said. Like it just comes in first.
It just checks for less EV as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty important. And again, if the blockers aren't obviously super relevant, you're always going to bluff from the bottom up, and ace 10 is less.
Yeah. But do you
Check
think
look at this.
there will be scenarios where you'll bluff a hand that's or you'll bluff a hand that is better than a hand you check. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, it happens.
And but that'll be mainly because of like blocking and unblocking, yeah.
Yeah, so if you block a lot of value and you make a lot of the folds available when you're bluffing, you might bluff a little bit higher up and check further down.
Yeah.
So the blockers are going to have a big impact on how to bluff. But again, when you're not sure, you just go from the bottom up. It's going to be the most consistent and safe way to do it.
Yeah. That a couple of lads are asking, can you? Oh, you're doing it. Yeah, there we are. I was gonna say put the heart on the river.
Let's add a couple of sizes in.
But this jammies has to call Jack X and sub pairs, which not happening in real life. Yeah, I think Adam's like mainly focusing on like what we want to be doing if he's playing essentially perfect.
Not really, Mark. He doesn't need to play perfect for our strategy to print money.
No,
We don't need. I know what you're saying. Like,
you're trying to look at like
theory.
Yeah.
But don't think that for this strategy to make you a shit ton of money, you need your opponents to play GDO. It's just not.
No. I mean for the purpose of this exercise.
100%. But yeah, it's a good point. Listen, if you node lock this river to your opponent overfold an MDF, it's going to bluff more.
Yeah.
100%. Where it's going to stop, it's hard to say. You would need to dive into it. But yeah, this is the 6 of hearts. So obviously the flush draws, we can't bluff flush draws now.
Yep.
They're a flush, we're value betting. The 9 brings in a lot of straight draws, the 10-8s, the 10-9s, the king-9s, whatever it might be. So what we're doing now, we're bluffing some pairs, we're bluffing some 3x. It's not using 10-3, but it's using 3 deuce, it's using 4-3, 4-3, 5-3 offsuits. It's shoving ace 3 with the ace of hearts.
Yeah.
But it's not bluffing that much, and the reason it's not bluffing that much is just because the bet size is small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if we go all in,
looks good.
if we roll in,
Here.
what are the bluffs to offset when we go for the all in
On the 6 of hearts?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Oh, we're not really going to have many jams though, looking at this.
Yeah, there aren't many jams, but it's going to be like ace 10, ace 3. It's going to be the bulk.
Okay, with these
Pretty much
hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's pretty much it. Again, you don't need that many.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll call it there, bud. Hopefully that was useful.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good topic to dive into some big blind stuff.
Yeah, we will, mate. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming on. If Adam does coaching regularly as well, lads. So if any of you are interested in getting involved or hitting him up, or even just joining his server, you can join there. And if you want to direct message him from there for coaching or whatever, you can ask him through there. So his Discord links in the chat if you want to join. He's got his own Discord, lads. So and like there's loads of stuff in there. So if you don't want to get like coaching or whatever straight away, you can still join. There's like a hand review section. Obviously coaching if you want to speak to him, action and staking. It's quite good Discord to be in. There's a lot of good players in there as well who are giving input. So yeah, if you want to join and just talk about poker, maybe just learn a thing or two, you're more than welcome to do that as well.